who better to start than to welcome Minister Dr. Janil, who will be sharing with us some words of wisdom and talking about AI, data, and everything. So please give the Senior Minister of State a round of applause. Thank you, Dr. Janil.
Thanks. Thank you, Daniel. I was in my t-shirt and hoodie this morning, but then I thought I'd put a suit and tie on. Otherwise, how would you know that I was in politics? Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about trust in AI. And I think it's worth thinking about what is it that we're worried about? Why is it that we're worried about this issue? And then we can perhaps think a little bit more about what we can do about it before we go into the panel when the rest of the participants will tell me that I'm wrong. Why is trust in AI becoming an issue today? There are, I think, a handful of reasons, but I would like to concentrate on a couple. The first is that many of the tools that are leading up to that AI-driven type of revolution that we are expecting, coming out of the tech scene, coming out of the Bay Area, coming out of this whole wave of digital disruption that we've seen around the world, has, in its first wave, been intervening in a space where they have become arbiters of trust. You have a whole bunch of products whose basis is trust me. Trust me to tell you which driver to get into, which happens to be a complete stranger. Trust me to tell you who you should let your house out to for the holidays. Trust me about this book, which you don't have an opportunity to browse on the shelves, but you're going to receive in the post. But increasingly, some of these tools are now being deployed and applied in spaces where the value to us as a consumer and us as a citizen is already a trusted institution. I hope you trust the doctor you go and see. You trust the policeman in the uniform. You trust the official on the other side of the counter. And the concern is that AI and AI-driven tools will be applied to these types of interactions where there is already a significant need for trust, and there are organizations that are already the arbiters of trust. So what is it exactly that we're concerned about? I would break it down into three interlinked issues. We are concerned about the collection and use of data, particularly personal data, the processing of that data by tools and technologies that we're getting a little bit fearful of. They are bordering on the kind of artificial intelligence that we see in the science fiction series and that are usually associated with a dystopian outcome. But they are AI. And that these tools and technology use the data to apply them to outcomes. And those outcomes are either unexpected or inadvertent from our human social expectations. So three issues: the data, the technology, and the outcomes. Let me work backwards from the outcomes. If the outcomes are what we are worried about, our starting position has to be that we look at the institutions and the organizations and the domains where these outcomes are valid. What do I mean by that? Well, frankly speaking, if today you don't trust your doctor, whether she has her decisions informed by AI or she's just making it up or what she remembers from medical school, you're not going to get very far. You need a strong and trusted institution in the first place, that when it comes to the outcomes of AI-driven decision-making, the foundation has to be responsible institutions, institutions that drive and shore up public trust, that you have confidence in the dispute resolution mechanisms, that you have confidence in the appeal processes. What does it take to have this type of institutional trust in the era of AI? Well, it means that the institutions need to develop capability around artificial intelligence and technology. We're in a time when regulators, public institutions now need to hire serious technical talent so that they can become informed regulators, so that they can shore up the public trust in their institutions. And we need to find ways for the artificial intelligence tools to be measured against current expectations and social standards. So you actually have to have those current expectations and social standards. What is the kind of privacy you should be afforded when you go and engage with the social services office? To what extent is your library borrowing something that should be protected? No one needs to know which books you borrow and what subjects that you're interested in. That's a decision independent of whether AI is in the space. You need those strong and trusted institutions. And you need a way then to say, given this standard, how might I measure the performance, the provenance of an AI-driven decision against this standard? Moving to the middle, the tools, this new set of technologies that are coming online. What should we be doing to them? Should we be doing for them? Now, if we take the premise that ultimately we worry about the outcomes, if you look at what's happening today, we are planning in the middle space, the technology and the tools, for things that have not yet happened. If you have an AI-driven decision-making tool about, let's say, healthcare, or a decision around security, and you apply those to the standards I talked about for the outcomes later on, then you don't really worry about how the technology was developed, how the tools was developed. And you want to leave space for the engineers, the innovators, the inventors to get on with developing cool stuff. But you do need a process to reassure all of us that when that cool technology can be applied to very powerful decision-making outcomes, that they will be done in an ethical and responsible manner. And so the issue for us as government in that middle space, the tool and the technology, is not so much the tool and the technology itself, but the process of being reasonable, of being responsible, and being ethical. So what is our approach in Singapore? Well, it begins for us as a public institution, quite similar to where I began for the outcomes. We need our own technical talent. We need, in government, to be informed about the cutting edge of AI development. We need coders, engineers, ethicists, and legal policy experts in AI within the state institutions. We need a capability development plan for government. But we also need conceptual tools. We need a framework of how to think about this. And so we launched earlier in this year the Model AI Governance Framework. We put it out there as going to be a live document, public consultation, industry consultation, expert consultation, and we'll adapt and refine it over time. But what is it trying to achieve? It is trying to achieve a series of thought frameworks, giving businesses and organizations a way to say, this is how I have developed accountability for my development of AI, for my research around AI. This is how I've introduced the concepts of fairness, explainability, transparency, and human centricity into my organization's AI development plans. The governance framework applies not just to the development of AI within the organization, but how that organization might then subsequently use it. Use it for decision making, use it for operations. It's guidance, it's iterative, and it's something that we will improve over time. But we have also put together a council, an advisory council on the ethical use of artificial intelligence and data, bringing together thought leadership, representatives from government, as well as large technology companies and other interested parties to try to build the kind of thought leadership, the academic conceptual models about how ethical issues may be applied to AI. Not necessarily to solve today's problems, but to give us more confidence that when that cool tech becomes more powerful, we will have someone to look to, we will have some frameworks to base our decisions from, and we will have a body of expertise to get the conversation going a little bit faster. In parallel, we're working with our universities to set up research programs on the governance in AI and data use. And again, not technical research programs. These are legal research programs, social studies research programs, ethical research programs. We will have to do this, and we will have to do this quickly, but also be prepared to be agile over time and refine how we think about these things. Let me turn now to that third domain. And I think that's where most of the anxiety is today, the data. That's where the concerns are, because historically that's where things have either gone wrong, or on the basis of where we see today's technology, we expect there to be risks going forward. The reality is that this forum is about having trusted AI, we want to have AI tools, products, and services delivered to us. We imagine that these will transform our lives and make our lives better. So it's not about keeping AI away. We want to have AI, and we want to be able to trust the AI that we have. What does that mean for data? Well, it means that our personal data at some point needs to be collected, used, processed, and shared. We can't have the kind of AI tools without that access to data. But this comes with risks, as are well understood, as well as opportunities. And some of those opportunities come with further risks of their own, because in this space, the reality is there's an opportunity for business. There's an opportunity for profit. And that means that the innovation, the new services, and the transformation are partly driven by the profit motive of the private sector. Not wrong, but it does mean that from a regulator's perspective, we need to think of what are the incentives and processes we need to put in place so that the private sector deals with data in a responsible way, is incentivized to minimize risks to citizens, and comes with an appropriate cost calculation. This requires regulation. Our regulator in this space in Singapore is the Personal Data Privacy Commission, and they have an act, the Personal Data Protection Act, which has been around for 4 years, which sets out the framework for how this work will be done. But they have been live to the need for constant innovation and invention. The businesses have been telling them, this is how you can slack off a little bit and give us a little bit of space. These are the things that we need to get done in order to develop new, cool stuff. These are the crazy ideas we want to operationalize, and PDPC has been working with them. The history of PDPC over the short 4 years that they've been around has been largely on compliance on the collection and protection and security of data. If you have any questions on this, Zikin is going to be moderating the panel. I don't know if the moderator can take questions, but you can give him all the tough questions. But the paradigm that PDPC has been operating on is compliance on protection. This is how I tell you to secure our citizens' data. This is how I tell you to protect against risks. But in the conversation with industry, that thinking has shifted. That thinking has shifted to the point where we're now quite clear that as a regulator, we can't just tolerate data sharing. We have to say that data sharing is necessary for the kind of business models, product development, and service delivery that the private sector wants to do. The regulator has a role to play in this. And so what we have done in the past now, moving from the previous paradigm, which is here's how you share, here's how you protect and secure the data, share at your own risk. What we are now saying, you need to share. You need to share as part of your business, and we're telling you how to share responsibly, how to share data in such a way that we will trust your sharing of data. So I'm pleased to announce that PDPC is launching its Trusted Data Sharing Framework, explaining to companies, setting out some guidelines, some of the positions on how to share, how to develop a common data sharing language, how to improve data flows within the private sector, and hopefully eventually between the private sector and the public sector as well. But this will take some work. And ultimately, if this results in increasing public trust in the private sector and its ability to collect and use data responsibly, it benefits all of us, because we will then be able to accelerate our development towards the kind of trusted AI data solutions that we all want. But ultimately, this is not about us as government saying, this is the position, this is the line, don't cross it, or putting all the responsibility onto the private sector and saying, minimize your profits and maximize your risk protection. There is a role for us as individual citizens to also play. Ultimately, all three of us, if we choose to do our part badly, if we are irresponsible, if we're intend to exploit this space for malicious means, no law, no data sharing guideline or framework, or no action against a company is going to protect us. This is really a whole of nation effort. We in government need to recognize that there are benefits to the development of these types of services, but there is a responsibility on us to protect our citizens. We need to engage with the private sector to persuade them that they can be willing participants and perhaps even see new business models in that process. And we need to educate our public and participate to protect our own personal data so that we can arrive at the kind of trusted AI solutions that can help us to transform our Singapore through technology. I'm looking forward to your questions and your discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senior Minister of State Jamil.